Hey there, it's John from Living the Music. Today we're talking about classic rock, classic albums. One of the greatest hard rock albums of all time, the debut from the band Montrose. Personal favorite of mine. We're going to talk about some of the origin of this album. We're going to go through the tracks. We're going to talk about why this is such an enduring classic. And also, we're going to look at how music can inspire us and, turn us on to life, even if the lyrics aren't all that meaningful per se. They're fine, but it's really about the energy of the music that gets us going and gives us, like I say, an impetus to jump into life, with our own passion, just like the passion these guys put into the music. Now, who are we talking about here? Well, it's called Montrose. So this guy here is Ronnie Montrose. He, I think, comes from Colorado, but he had lived in the Bay Area when this album was made. He came over from the Edgar Winter group, who had just had a hit album with They Only Come Out at Night, which has Frankenstein and Free Ride on it. So he's the guitar player, or the main guitar player on that. And he just felt like he was ready to do his own thing. So he was recommended to check out Sammy Hagar, a local singer in California. He liked what he heard. They became a partnership. And Sammy knew of this drummer, Denny Carmassi, who's over here, a little sliver of him on the cover. And Denny went on to be on all four Montrose albums and also on all three of Ronnie's next band, Gamma's albums. But after Gamma, he went on to work with Heart, and he's on a number of Heart albums. In fact, their most successful phase is with Denny on drums. And then you got this guy, Bill Church, on bass. He was a friend of Ronnie's. They had worked together with Van Morrison prior to Ronnie's Edgar Winter phase, and they became best friends. They would fish and hunt together, and they had a good chemistry. Apparently, Ronnie wasn't settled on him as the bass player for whatever reason, and he tried out three other guys maybe, but ultimately it was determined that Bill was great, and this was the perfect ensemble for what they were trying to do. Straight ahead, in your face, bright, powerful rock. You got a little bit of Led Zeppelin here, particularly in the drum sound. Denny Carmassi was definitely influenced by John Bonham, as so many rock drummers were. The producer on this album is I'm thinking of the engineer first. The engineer is Don Landy, who was basically partners with the producer, Ted Templeman. So Ted went on to a lot more fame with the Doobie Brothers, and he produced a number of Van Halen albums also. And Van Halen apparently said, "We want the drum sound that you got on that first Montrose album." So, these things come back around one way or another, if they're good, if they're classic. So, how did I get into this album? Well, I lived in the Bay Area. I grew up in the Bay Area. I was born in Wisconsin. We moved to the Bay Area when I was just starting second grade. And around 11 years old, I started getting into rock music. I was first introduced to Kiss, and then started expanding from there. I recall that, believe it or not, my mother is the one who indirectly got me into Montrose, because one day she came home very proud and said, I was at the record store, and I think they were playing this album, which is a live album by Sammy Hagar, a solo album. They were playing this in the store, and she asked the guy who worked there, "Who is this?" "Oh, it's Sammy Hagar." "Great, I got to buy that. I think my kids are going to love that." So she came home with this album, which I think it's Sammy's fourth album. So he had done 3 studio albums, and then he put out this live album, I want to say in 76. It's either 75 or 76. Maybe 77. Forgive me. Somewhere in there. And my brother and I, we fell in love with Sammy and his voice, his whole vibe, of course, his songwriting. We just thought this was fantastic. So then we heard that previous to this, he was in Montrose. And in fact, this first Montrose album was a classic. He ended up being on the follow-up to this, Paper Money, also. But then that was it for Sammy and Ronnie together. And then there were 2 more Montrose albums. So yeah. So apparently in the making of this album, there was pretty good band chemistry, and Ronnie and Sammy wrote most of the songs together. They seemed to feed off of each other quite well. Sammy had a whole book full of lyrics, which Ronnie would sift through, and he could pull parts from different pages of the notebook apparently, and then he would write most of the music. Now, Sammy wrote the music for at least a couple of these songs. We'll go through them because some of these it's not so clear, but even though they had this creative connection, I am told from interviews that they had friction. These guys, they were arguing and fighting, right from the beginning. I don't think in this first album, in the making of it, it was to an oppressive level, but it was there. It was simmering, and at times it would bleed out. So that proved to be portentous, because, like I say, they didn't last very long, unfortunately. We'll come back to that, because I think if they would have stayed together, this would have been the American equivalent, every bit as good and probably as popular as Aerosmith, believe it or not. But because the Sammy-Ronnie dynamic didn't last, it just kind of fizzled after that. Now, Sammy's a guitar player also, but on this album, he only does singing. If you listen to subsequent Sammy albums, and especially when he's in Van Halen, his voice sounds a little bit different here. He wasn't as seasoned. It's a really cool sound. It's just, you'll see. It's just maybe a little thinner, but not bad. Still, great sounding. Ted and Don, the producer and the engineer, they got really bright, actually a famously bright sound on this album. It's only like 33 minutes, something like that, 34, but very short album, and so it had a lot of space on the vinyl to take advantage of the dynamic range, and it just the way it was recorded. It has tremendous separation of the instruments. Everything is just bright and sparkling, and it really hits you hard in the face with pure, unadulterated rock. There's no keyboards on this album. It's essentially a trio on instruments. You got Ronnie on guitar, Bill on bass, Danny on drums, and then you got Sammy singing. And interestingly, on the liner notes, they say there's guitar overdubs on 4 of the songs. I don't recall ever reading that in any other album. That's interesting that Ronnie probably felt the need or the desire to share that, so that on the other 4 songs it's just one pass through the song. Okay, so going through these songs, there's only 8 of them, and every one of them is a knockout in its own way, although there are two tiers here. Now, you start off with Rock the Nation. This is definitely in the top tier. Apparently, Ronnie had the riff for this when he first met Sammy. It's credited just to Ronnie. I don't believe Ronnie wrote the lyrics for this. I think there was some kind of deal. That's never been admitted to. You know, there's no. I don't have any proof of that. Although I could say I have indirect proof, because on the next album, Paper Money, there's another song a little bit similar to Rock the Nation called I Got the Fire. Similar kind of vibe to it. And Ronnie took credit for that one, although Sammy says he definitely wrote the lyrics to that one. So I have a feeling Ronnie just made a deal with Sammy to take the full credit on this, probably because he gives Sammy full credit on 2 other songs which Sammy brought to the band. And Ronnie probably did help him a little bit to, shape it somewhat, because he's a little bit more accomplished of a guitar player than Sammy, although Sammy's very good. Sammy has said that Ronnie would take his songs and make them sound a lot better on the guitar especially. So that's what I think went down. But anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a tremendous song. It's also cool, although Ronnie's a guitar hero, and on upcoming albums he does a lot of long solos, and eventually he's just doing solo albums, and he can solo for days. But on this album, he doesn't do particularly long solos. They're very compact, potent. It sounds like they're written for the most part just to suit the song. And sure enough, with this one, it's a great solo that fits the song perfectly. This is all about just, get to it, rock the nation, to get your passion going and throw yourself in and let's go. Now you can rock the nation, as a rock band, as they're doing, or you can rock the nation in whatever your pursuit is, but just bring that energy to it is what they seem to be saying. Now that goes into Bad Motor Scooter, the second song. That's quite a famous song because Sammy played this one quite a lot in his solo tours. I think they might have even played this when he was in Van Halen. But Sammy wrote this one. Now Ronnie famously came up with this guitar motorcycle sound, or that is to say, it sounds kind of like a motorcycle revving up or shifting into gear, and it's super cool. And he did this somehow just using his guitar and the amp and maybe a Leslie speaker or something, I forget, and some feedback. And Sammy on this live album actually would do a tremendous version of this song where he trades guitar solos with his guitar player at the time, Gary Peel, and that's super fun. But then we go to Space Station number 5. This is a great collaboration between Ronnie and Sammy. Great sci-fi, fantasy song lyrically, and then powerful writing and chord changes and tempo changes, and this one really amps up the energy of the album. This one's probably the highest tempo song on the album, and by the end of it, it's like double, triple, quadruple time, really pumping you up, so to speak. Fantastic track. That one's one of the longer tracks at just over 5 minutes. Then you got I Don't Want It, closing out side 1. This is another Sammy and Ronnie song. I think maybe Sammy basically had this one written, but Ronnie, added a little something, say, or shaped it to his own devices, his own preferences. It's okay. I would say this is in the second tier of songs. I mean, it's better than okay. It's still powerful. It's just it's not top tier. And I think Bill Church in his memoir says that they didn't really play that one live, so they kind of knew it wasn't the really special tunes. Then you turn it over to side 2, and you got Good Rockin' Tonight. Now, this is a cover tune, and this was written in 1947, believe it or not. It came out in 1947, and it's by this guy, Roy Brown, right? Roy Brown. And he had a bit of a hit with it in America, and then Elvis did a cover also in 1954. So, it has a pedigree to it. And one of Ted Templeman's philosophies with a lot of his artists was that they should do at least one cover song that's semi-well-known, if not very well-known, because it has a built-in audience to it. And we know that song works. It's been proven to work. People, we know they like it. They bought it. It stood the test of time. So they rocked this one up, so to speak, and gave it its probably most robust treatment ever. Great version. I'm a little bit surprised that they had to resort to a cover with only 8 songs, but again, the producer was telling them this was a good idea, and I think they picked the perfect tune. Then we go into the second song on side 2, Rock Candy. Now, this is perhaps the most classic, famous, well-known song. Again, Sammy has played this a lot in his solo career. I think they would do this also in Van Halen. This has that booming drum intro by Denny, which is reminiscent of When the Levee Breaks by Zepp, and just a killer riff, killer singing. I mean, this is a rock classic. Surely you've heard this, whether you recognize that name or not. If you were to hear it right now, you'd say, yep, I know that tune. It's just a perfect rock song. And I actually think in Sammy's whole discography through solo and Van Halen, I don't think he ever topped the majesty and genius and perfection of Rock Candy. They nailed it right then and there, and it's just too good to top. So then we go into the third song on side 2, One Thing on My Mind. Now here again, kind of surprising. Apparently, this song was really written by a guy named John Sanchez, and he is credited on here, but they give Sammy a co-write and Ronnie a co-write. But apparently, they basically bought this song from this guy. Just, some guy one of the band members knew, and they knew he was pretty good at writing songs, and they needed another song that was top quality. So they bought this free and clear from this guy. They didn't owe him any royalties or anything, and here it is. This again, I think, is second tier. I don't think they ever played this one live. It's fine. It's probably my least favorite on the album, but it's still a good rock tune. And then we close out with Make It Last. This is a Sammy Soul writing credit. He brought this to Ronnie, and maybe Ronnie helped a little bit, but the way the riff occurs, it's pretty simplistic, if I may say, but powerful. And I have a feeling it's more or less as Sammy wrote this one. I've done a separate video on just this song because this lyric, in fact, I think does have some powerful meaning to it, actually. Where he's at this age, Ronnie and Sammy were both 25, And he's already kind of thinking about, wow, when you grow up in life, you set these kind of benchmarks of, when I reach this age, I'll sort of be happy. And then you get there and it's really not what you thought. And then you have another benchmark of when you'll be happy. And eventually he starts thinking about, maybe that doesn't really matter what age you are, whether I'm 12 or whether I'm 64, something like that. I think I've heard the song so much, but you get on this camera and your mind loses its memory sometimes. But I think that's a powerful message, and something I still strive to live every day of my life right now. It's like, it's not about yesterday, it's not about tomorrow, it's here we are, let's make the most of this day. Now, this would only go on, here's the back cover, this would only go on to reach number 133 in the Billboard charts. So, obviously it really wasn't a hit, but it's still in print, it's been selling ever since, and it's now a platinum album, which means it sold at least 1 million copies in the U.S. And they don't always sort of keep on top of that, up to the moment. So for all we know, it might be double platinum by now if they were to certify it again. But anyway, it has done quite well. If you look at worldwide, who knows? I'm sure it's sold multiple millions of albums. It's something that I always come back to. I always will come back to. It's got enduring power. There's the abandon of youth on here. These guys, as I say, were about 25. They'd been through some ropes in the rock world, but they were still young and very hungry. And everybody was on their A game. They weren't fooling around. They made this quickly. They didn't overthink it. They didn't, laden it with all kinds of sonic trinkets. They just kept it pure and simple, and it's all the better for it. So, it's classic for a reason. I'm thankful to have this outlet to tell you why it's so incredible, how much it means to me personally. And in terms of living the music, this is an album you can go to, and I can pretty much guarantee you will be fired up for your day as a result of listening to. And that's nothing to sneeze at. That's a worthy result, and that's a great work of art in my opinion. And it makes me feel good. It makes me feel strong. It makes me feel alive, and it makes me excited to share my gifts with the world. I think it'll do the same for you. So check it out. Montrose by Montrose from 1973. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe to my channel. Give us a like on this video, and I'd love to hear your comments on this album. All right, take care, everybody.